Hey everyone, Steven here from Redolessence and welcome to another fragrance review. Please don't forget to subscribe for future videos and frequent giveaways by clicking the link down below. So this time I'm very happy to be talking about a fragrance from the house of Paco Rabanne. I've had this one for a while now and the fragrance is called Black Excess. So here's the bottle, pretty cool looking bottle, a little kitschy but we'll talk about that in a bit. It came out in 2005 and the perfumer for this fragrance is Olivier Cresp, not to be confused with Olivier Polge. Olivier Cresp has done many fragrances. He's actually collaborated on a couple with Annick Minardo. He has done Cocorico by Jean Paul Gaultier. He's even done Attitude by Giorgio Armani. He's done Versace Man au Fraiche. He has even worked on Angel by Thierry Mugler. So he has really been around, mostly designer fragrances I think, but he's definitely very well known and he has more than just his foot in the door. With this fragrance I think it actually smells a lot like another one that he did, a woman's fragrance, which is very famous, very popular now, and I'll tell you what that is in just a little bit. So Paco Rabanne, they've been around for a long time. It's a French fashion house. I believe they've been around since 1966. It wasn't until just a few years later, I think in 68 or 69, when they decided to branch out into fragrances, and they made their very first fragrance, which is a woman's fragrance called Calendre, very popular, and one of their best sellers if I'm not mistaken. Ever since then, they've been very consistent with their releases. I think they're up to like 50-something fragrances, 55 fragrances or something like that. So they've actually been releasing a lot, and they cater to both crowds evenly. So they have many women's fragrances, many men's fragrances, and they also have many flankers of their fragrances. I think the most recent ones were released just this year, but they're all flankers. They released an Invictus flanker, that's probably their most recent original release, but they just came out with like a limited edition of that fragrance. They came out with a flanker for 1 million called $1 million. It has a dollar sign in the name. And then I think they came out with one for Lady Million called Oh My Gold. So they are very big on flanker fragrances, and this fragrance, even though it seems like an original fragrance, this is actually a flanker too. So the original one was released in 1993 and it's called Excess. And then they came out with an Excess Extreme, I think. They came out with another one, and then now they started releasing the black bottles, and it started to adapt the name Black Excess. So they've released several flankers of the flanker. So now they have Black Excess Potion, Black Excess Lexe, Black Excess L'aphrodisiac. The list goes on and on and on. So I'm going to let you know what I think of this fragrance. Next up, let's take a look at the presentation for Black Excess by Paco Rabanne. Now the box for Black Excess by Paco Rabanne is a pretty simple box. You have this lustrous finish here in the front. It's pretty standard cardboard. You have the name of the fragrance at the top, name of the company down here at the bottom. You have this nice little logo with a rose and a thorny stem wrapped around the word black. I think it's a pretty cool logo. Ingredients at the back, and you have the UPC code at the very bottom with the serial number stamped in there, and then just the Paco Rabanne logo embossed into the very top of the box. That's pretty much it. Very simple. As far as the bottle goes, you have the logo here in the front again. Pretty cool opaque bottle as opposed to the original, which was clear and transparent, released in '93. And the cap opens up just like this. It's very reminiscent of a cigarette lighter. I think it's very kitschy as opposed to chic. It actually reminds me a lot of the Armani Attitude bottle, another fragrance that Olivier Cresp worked on. And then down here at the very bottom, you have your information like the serial number and the size. And the atomizer doesn't spray out a lot of juice. It's an okay distribution, very good atomization though, and you can actually afford to over apply a little bit with this one because of the soft nature of the composition, but also the juice that it spits out. And that has pretty much been the presentation for Black Excess by Paco Rabanne. Paco Rabanne's Black Excess opens up with the very dominant note of praline. And praline has an odor profile that has a soft, chocolatey, milky, almost nutty smell to it. And that's certainly what you get from this fragrance. It has a very gourmandish overtone. It opens up kind of sweet, and even though I do think the sweetness is soft, I don't think it's used in moderation. And I say that because it's a very sweet fragrance, but it doesn't quite pack the punch that Angel Man by Thierry Mugler does. This one, it's sweet, but it's blended in with some other notes that really serve to tame it down a bit. I know it's coupled with the note of lemon, and it's this note that right away reminded me of a very popular woman's fragrance also created by the same perfumer. And that fragrance is one with which I have a lot of experience, primarily because my girlfriend wears it all the time, and it's Dolce & Gabbana's Light Blue for women. If you're familiar with that fragrance, this one is not going to come as a surprise to you. The DNA and the background of this fragrance is very similar to it. I think that right away I picked up on that lemon note because of that connection, but now I started looking at the notes in Light Blue and I started comparing it to the smell of Black Excess, and what I can say is that this fragrance, even though it's not listed as a note, it does have somewhat of a rosy smell to it. Not rosy to the extent that it smells feminine, but that it cleans up, or it doesn't make it the gourmand powerhouse that this fragrance has the potential of being. Now, I'm not saying there's rose in here. It could be something like pink pepper, which also has a rosy feel, but a little bit of a spicy nuance as well. Now, I know that this fragrance does contain a few spices like sage and cardamom. I gotta be totally honest, I don't really get too much of a spicy herbal or culinary feel from this one. To me, it's more of a sweet gourmand, but also muted and toned down fragrance with a little bit of this lemon that actually lasts for a very long time, but it doesn't smell sour or acidic, so I really like that. And it doesn't smell like a very natural lemon fruit. It just has a little bit of like a zesty appeal to it, if that makes any sense. I know that this one also has some woods in it, which I guess is a redeeming factor to its masculinity. It contains the note of Brazilian rosewood. I have to be honest, I don't have much experience with the note of Brazilian rosewood, but when it dries down, you do get this sweet woody presence, almost as if there was a little bit of like vanilla or amber in this fragrance, and that's kind of what you get from the intro too. I just think it's so dominant with the chocolatey aspects that you can't really notice it until very well into the dry down. So it does have a woody presence, it's just not too evident from the beginning, but once it does dry down, it does start to come through a little bit. But I do want you to keep in mind that the gourmand facets really envelop this fragrance and they really dominate all throughout, even though it's a very soft, sweet smell that you get from this fragrance, if that makes any sense. In terms of this fragrance getting you compliments or getting you complaints from people, I think that this one will certainly get you compliments. I know many women who I have met in my life really love the smell of Light Blue by Dolce & Gabbana, and this one is a sweeter version of that, whereas Light Blue is more dominant in the floral aspects of it. So I think that women will really like this fragrance. My girlfriend really does like this fragrance, but then again, she is into the more sweeter fragrances like Blue Sugar by Aquilina or Vanille Insensé by Atelier Cologne, but this one is very appealing. I think the praline note in itself single-handedly makes this fragrance very appropriate for clubbing, partying, a night out, or any sort of close encounter scenario. I actually think that this would make a great between the sheets scent. I think it's a great scent, very sweet, but not overly sweet, not cloyingly sweet, and I think it's a nice fragrance overall. Last up, we have the rating. First up, we have uniqueness and overall smell, and I ended up giving this fragrance an 8 out of 10. Now, this is a very unique fragrance on the men's side. There's no other men's fragrance that quite smells the way that this one does, but if you're going to compare it to women's fragrances too, again, the comparison to Dolce & Gabbana's Light Blue is very strong, so maybe it's not entirely unique, but on the men's side, you really can't compare it to anything else on the market. I do think that this is a very nice smell. It's inoffensive, it's playful, it will get you a compliment, and overall, I just think it's a very great scent, so I ended up giving it an 8 out of 10. Next up, we have longevity. I ended up giving this fragrance a 7 out of 10. Longevity is just a little bit above average for an eau de toilette. I usually do get somewhere between 6 to 8 hours, so I averaged it out at 7. And in terms of projection, this is where I think it really fails. The projection on this one is very soft, average to below average actually. I ended up giving it a 5 out of 10. It only radiates between or below an arm's length. It never really goes beyond that. And I'm actually wearing it right now. I put on about 4 to 5 sprays and I applied it about 2.5 hours ago, and I'm not really smelling it right now. So The projection is just a little bit below average, so this is a fragrance, especially with the affordability, you can really afford to apply this one liberally and reapply throughout the day. Next up we have versatility. I give this one a 6 out of 10. I don't think that the versatility on this fragrance is great, but I do think that this could be a unisex fragrance. And I say that because it does have that evocation to Dolce & Gabbana's Light Blue for women, so I can really see both men and women wearing this one. I think in terms of age range, this is really where the versatility is compromised. This definitely does have a youthful character to it. I can imagine a teenager up to somebody 25 years old wearing this fragrance. Of course, that's just a recommendation. If you like the way that it smells, feel free to wear it. In terms of social scenarios, this is exclusively a night out fragrance. No one's gonna say anything to you if you wear it dressed up, but I think if you're dressed up, you could probably reach for something a little bit more refined, a little bit more elegant, more sophisticated, more appropriate for the occasion. And I think in terms of season, this would actually work best in the fall and spring. I think that because of the compositional nature, it wouldn't work too well in the summer, and I think that because of the performance or lack thereof, it wouldn't work too well in the winter. And last up we have the presentation. I already told you guys what I think about that. I think it's a pretty cool bottle. It actually preceded Giorgio Armani's Attitude, which also looks like a cigarette lighter, by 2 years. It preceded it by 2 years. I'm sure Zippo has their own fragrance now, but anyway, I do think that the presentation is actually okay. I ended up giving it a 7 out of 10 despite the fact it's a little kitschy. And then overall, I'm going to give this fragrance a rating of an 8 out of 10. I do think that this is a very nice fragrance. It has that gourmand appeal to it that is very inoffensive and will even lure people in, I think. It will be sure to get you compliments. This is the young, confident, playful guy's alternative to Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue for women. So guys, thank you so much for watching my review. That was my review of Black Excess by Paco Rabanne. If you own or have tried this fragrance, please let me know what you think by leaving a comment down below. Also, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel for future videos and frequent giveaways. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to shoot me a message and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible. So again guys, thank you so much for watching. This has been Steven with another fragrance review from Redolessence. See you soon.